Hi guys, welcome to my mid-year stats check-in where we are going to be going through my goals that I set myself for 2024, see if I'm keeping on top of them, and also look at my reading stats for the first half of the year. As I'm sure you know by now, we are in the middle of the mid-year content. So at this point, you should have already seen my best books of the year so far video and also my mid-year book freakout tag. And still to come after this little stats check-in, you also have part 1 and 2 of my mid-year series check-in to enjoy. But this one is going to be just running through my reading stats, see how I'm doing this year compared to how I was doing at the same time last year. And as we know, or as you may know, you may be new here, I don't know. But if you were around at the beginning of the year, you may remember that I set myself 4 quantifiable goals for the year that I could keep track of as the year progressed, and I'm gonna kind of disclose how I'm doing with those as well. Partially well, partially not well, and partially just okay, if I'm being honest. But I am going to be sharing some screenshots from my spreadsheet, which is what I use to track my reading in this video. As a little disclaimer, because I do get questions about it every year, I do not share my own spreadsheet like as a copy for you guys to use, because my spreadsheet is a mix of G from Book Row's core pile rating system and Ali from Hardback Hoarder's reading spreadsheet from, I think 2019 is the base that I'm using, but she has made updated versions since then, so I will link those two guys down below. If you guys want to make yourself something similar to mine, you can, or you can just use one of their amazing spreadsheets if you're looking to have a reading spreadsheet of your own. But should we start with the goals? Shall we check in and see how I'm doing? I set 4 goals at the beginning of 2024 and they were all to push me towards a particular point. So what I want to do right now is get through my backlist, stop hauling so many books that my TBR is constantly growing. I don't mind it staying the same size, but I don't want it to get any bigger, and to prioritize the older books on my TBR instead of just trying to manage the books that I'm getting in and like skimming off the top. So the 4 goals that I had, the first one is one that we are clinging on for dear life to this goal. It is to read more books than I haul. Now, as of this point right now that I'm filming this, we are neck and neck. I have currently read 54 books this year and I have hauled 54 books. So this was a way to push me in the right direction without putting myself on a book buying ban, because that's just too extreme for me. There's always excuses. Like I can't be on a complete book buying ban. So this is actually working really well because I feel like I am maintaining my TBR at a level where it's not going any higher, but I do need to kind of think about not purchasing any books for a little while, because I do get rep packages and stuff from subscription boxes as well, which is why the amount of books that I haul is always like at least a little bit high. But I maybe need to think about what I am buying and stop doing it, which to be fair, I haven't bought very much this year, and I feel like that is reflected in the stats that we'll get to a little bit later in this video. My second goal is the one that I am failing miserably, and I do really want to do something about this, and that was to read twice as many sequels as series that I have started, and I am not doing too well on this front. The reason why I wanted to achieve this goal is because I feel like I'm constantly starting things and then I don't have time to reread, but then by the time I get to the sequels, I'm not enjoying them as much as I would be if I'd have read them closer to book 1, because it's been so long since I've read book 1 that I don't remember it as well as I could do. Unfortunately though, I am doing shelve it or scrap it, and that is not really pushing me towards achieving this goal very much, because the majority of the books that I do have in the stacks are ones by authors that I've never read from before, or they're like the start of a series, books I've received in subscription boxes, standalones, that kind of thing. So this is not going very well, and I'm currently 10 sequels behind. I should have read 32 sequels at this point because I've started 16 new series and I have read 22, so that's something that I definitely need to work on. And then the other 2 goals that I have go very much hand in hand. I want to prioritize my backlist of the place where I'm sourcing the books that I'm reading. I wanted the books that I'm reading from my own TBR that existed prior to the start of 2024 to exceed 60% of the total books that I'm reading, and I wanted the books that I'm reading that I have hauled in 2024 to be less than 25%. So I'm doing very, very well with this, as the books that I've read from my own TBR is currently at 72%, so 12% more than it needs to be, and the books that I've hauled, that I'm reading that I've hauled, is quite low at 7% right now, which I think has has something to do with the fact that I am controlling the books that I haul, means I'm reading less books that I've hauled because I obviously have far more books that I already own. So a nice little segue from the goals to the stats section of this video would be to talk about my Goodreads goal. So I set my Goodreads goal as one more book than I read the year previous. And I'm doing real well this year, guys. My goal is 96 books because I read 95 books in 2023 and I've currently read 54. So that is 8 more books than I'd read at this point last year. So it makes perfect sense that I'm currently 8 books ahead on my Goodreads goal. I'm not sure exactly why this is. I feel like I am dedicating a bit more time to reading. I'm also in a better headspace than I have been the last couple of years. It was like a whole process of my mental health being really bad and gradually getting better. And I feel like I am in a much better place now with a much better mentality and attitude towards work, which has helped me to read a little bit better. So I'm real happy with this. For the pages that I've read as well, because that is more important to me than the amount of books that I've read, I have currently read 21,779 pages, which is 3,339 more than last year. So that is the equivalent of a month of reading for me. It tends to be between 3,000 and 4,000 pages. So I've read about a month's worth of books more this year than I had at this point last year. I am going to shuffle to the side because otherwise I'm going to get really annoyed in editing when I have no space to insert some graphs for you guys. So next we'll cover the type of books I read. I still don't have a good title for this, but this is where I'm tracking like my rereads, my standalones, my new series that I'm starting, and the sequels that I'm reading. So I've actually read exactly the same amount of sequels as I had at this point last year, but I've started 5 more series, which is not great. And then out of these stats, those are the ones that I only really care about. Standalones tends to stay about the same, and I have no like goal for the amount of standalones I want to read. Although if I did read more standalones and less series, I would not be in this situation. In terms of the amount of books read, my worst months are tied, and they are currently January, February, and June. Although based on the page count, January is actually my worst month of the year, which is unusual because I usually read a lot in January because we're coming off the back of the Christmas break. Like I tend to extend mine at least midway through January, but this year I did not read so much. For my star ratings, we are still seeing me progressively hate everything a little bit more as the years go by. Now I didn't have any 1-star reads this year. They are incredibly rare for me. I've had 2 over the last 4 or 5 years, one of which was in 2023. So we've had no 1-stars, but we have had 8 more 2-star reads this year. We've had an extra 4 3-stars and an extra 1 4-star, and then we've had 3 less 5-stars. So I do feel like as time goes on, especially because I did adjust my rating system a little bit last year, I've come to kind of get comfortable within that rating system this year. So I'm utilizing those lower ratings a little bit more because essentially my problem was that I was finding I was giving everything 3 stars even if I didn't like it, and it would take a lot for me to give a 2-star rating. So now that I've shifted that, we are seeing an increase in 2 stars, which is fine, but I would also really love some more 5 stars. That would be amazing. For the demographics, I actually feel like I'm reading a lot of YA this year, especially because I'm currently reading the Pretty Little Liars series like 1 book every month, which is an extra YA that I would not typically read every month. Also, shelve it or scrap it, there's quite a lot of YA in there because it's not something I typically reach for. So I felt like we would have a bigger increase in YA than we do. It's just a 5% increase on this time last year, which is only accounted for by 4 books, which to be honest is essentially all of the Pretty Little Liars books I've read so far. And we just have a 8% decrease in adult, which is mainly accounted for by the increase we've had in YA. For the formats, the only real thing to note here, I guess, is that we've had a 7% increase in audiobooks. I am continuously listening to more and more audiobooks, and they're not becoming a dominant part of my reading or anything, but I've gone from not liking audio to very rarely listening to audio to occasionally picking up an audiobook to always having an audiobook on the go. So at the minute, I listen to at least 30 minutes of audio a day. It means that I'm only listening to 1 or 2 audiobooks a month, if that, but it means that I am consistently listening to audio in a way that I never have before. And I feel like that is because I have become a lot more tolerant to audiobooks. I used to hate listening to books because I just couldn't pay attention. I've since learned how to pick audiobooks so that I'm listening to stuff that's keeping me interested. And also I'm a lot more physically active than I was. One of the personal goals that I had for this year was to do at least 8,000 steps per day. Also to get myself physically active in the morning, because I'm definitely more of an evening workout person. So I have made sure that pretty much every single morning, with very few exceptions, the first thing I do in the morning is I go out and I walk Brie by myself. And so I'm listening to audio for at least 30 minutes there. I've done a lot of jigsaws this year because I keep falling in and out of like little obsessive moments with them. So I listen to audio when I do that, and that has resulted in this 7% increase. I have also had a 5% increase in the physical books that I'm reading. So they're just standard, like regular books that I'm just reading with my eyes, that aren't like manga, comics, novellas, anything like that. And I think that this is because of the other goals that I have, where I'm prioritizing my backlist and books that I physically own. It means that I've been reading books physically a little bit more. That being said, I don't feel like this is necessarily reflected in my sources. So I do have a 12% increase in books that I'm reading from my own TBR and a 7% decrease in books that I'm reading that I've hauled this year, which we did talk about in the goals section. I am finding a back route to all of my goals, and I'm annoying myself because, like, I know a lot of people will say like, oh, don't be so strict. If you want to buy books, buy books. If you want to start new series, start new series. Because like you guys will see when creators put challenges in place, you'll see that we're suffering a little bit. But what you got to remember is that we chose to suffer. We picked these challenges for a reason, because we wanted to achieve things. So we're suffering on purpose. So what I really need to stop doing is going to my library. And I'm using this, the reason why I'm saying that this is a backdoor route is because I am using this to stop me from buying books. So like I'm still reading my anticipated releases of the year. I'm just not buying them, I'm borrowing them, which is great in terms of stopping me from buying books, but it's not helping me read the books that I actually have. So when it comes to, am I reading at least more books than I've hauled? And it's like, yes, I am, but they're not books that I own. They're books from the library. And that is why I need to stop borrowing books. I do still want to utilize my library, but it's something that I have to do gradually and not right now, because right now I need to read down the books that I have. And when I've read those down a little bit, when I've got my buying habits under control, which I feel like I am right now, then I can go to my library, because then I can read more books that I don't currently own, because my own TBR is not as much of a problem, if that makes sense at all. Moving on to the genres that I've read from, we have a 5% decrease in fantasy, which I thought was because I was reading more romantic fiction, like fantasy romance and just regular romance, but I actually am reading just like random little bits of other genres. Like I have a lot more variety within the genres that I've read this year in comparison to last year. Like last year we didn't have any horror on the wheel. Last year we also had 5% less mystery, which is directly pretty much accounted for by those Pretty Little Liars books that I was talking about. So it's not more that I'm leaning towards romantic fiction like I thought. It's actually just I'm reading a little bit more varied than I was, and so that's where the 5% has kind of been taken away from straight up fantasy. In terms of the relationship that I have with authors, so I essentially just track whether the authors that I'm reading from are new ones or ones that I've read from before. And there's actually no purpose for this aside from just curiosity. Like I'm not really aiming for anything, but I do want to say that I remain consistent. There is a 0.7% fluctuation in this. I've read 0.7% more new authors this year and 0.7% less authors that I previously know. So this is pretty much exactly the same. It's still a 60-40 split, and that has been pretty consistent for a long time. It's not something that I consciously track, so I don't know how it's ending up so consistent. You'd expect it to fluctuate a little bit more if I'm not actively reading either way. It's such a strange statistic to be so stable, but it is, and I'm not sure why. And then the final thing that we're going to be talking about today is the publishing wheel, which I'm going to have to pull up on my phone so that I can see it, because it's a lot. It's a lot, and this is just mainly interesting to look at. I'm not going to go through everything on here because it is so much, but I do have a 6% decrease in the amount of self-published books that I'm reading at the minute. I have strayed away from romance a little bit, which was, I guess, the main topic of my stats video at this point last year, how I just felt like I wasn't enjoying romance. I've actually got back into it a little bit more recently and found some stuff that I enjoyed, but I think, and I can't track this, I can't tell you if this is genuinely what's happened, it's just an assumption, but as Book Talk has got super hyped, as all of the traditional publishers have been picking up all of the indie authors, I'm wondering if the reason why I have read 6% less indie books this year is not because of me and me actively choosing not to, but it's because I'm reading the same books that I would have been. It's just now they're traditionally published instead of being self-published. I have no way to confirm that, but based on the way that the trends in the publishing industry are going, I feel like it is very likely. Back in the day, I was very consistently reading Harper Voyager books, and that was like the next biggest section of this wheel. As you can see, it's actually quite a small one at the minute at 6%, and I'm reading a little bit more Galanx as my like dominant fantasy publisher. I believe that the reason why Galanx is so high at the minute is because Galanx is Joe Abercrombie's publisher, and we're currently doing, of course, the first law series for Catch Up Book Club. And then on the other side of that, I'm pretty sure that the publisher for Wheel of Time is Orbit, but my Orbit percentage is really quite low at 4% this year. That being said, I think we've only read 3 Wheel of Time books at this point, so that could have something to do with it. And then actually HarperCollins is kind of high considering, oh, never mind. I was gonna say considering it's a contemporary publisher. And that I think is to do with Pretty Little Liars. I think that Pretty Little Liars may be HarperCollins. So those are all of my stats for 2024 so far. Quite an interesting bunch, I feel. The cool thing about this is that it tells me things about my reading that I don't know until I look at these stats and think about kind of like where the variation is coming from. And I just think that's super cool and interesting. I know that this is a little bit of a niche video. It's one for the nerds more than anything. Not everyone's interested in it, but I love statistics. My favorite thing about finishing a book is filling in my spreadsheet. I can't lie. Say about that what you will, but it's the truth, guys. So down in my comments, if y'all want to let me know that you were here but you don't really have anything to say, you can leave me some sort of mathematical emoji just for the, once again, for the nerdy nerds. But aside from that, guys, please don't forget to like this video if you liked it and subscribe if you wanna. I can move over now. Down in my description box, you can find a link to my Goodreads, Instagram, and Patreon if you'd like to join me on any of those. But that is it from me today, guys. Bye.
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you'll go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.